Hello and welcome to another Talking Tactics episode with Dharnish here. We're recording this live on Big Up, the watch along platform we use so that we can go through the thread, so we can do live and answer questions, so we can do the tactics board. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to join us on the next time, because we'll be doing this, I think, weekly from here on, since we actually finally don't have international breaks interfering every 3 games. And Amorim is here, and it's worthwhile to talk about this. There'll be interesting discussions every week, so make sure to come join, and the link is below. All right, Dharnish, how are you today?
Good, thank you. Good. There's lots to unpack. Literally so much. There's loads of people that said, "Oh, we can't learn that much from the first game." I get why they said that, but after half an hour, I was like, "There's so much going on here. Like so much. I can't wait to get into it." It's not so much that there's lots to learn for us from the first game. There's lots to learn from what we saw and what's going to come next. So
Yep.
I think I disagree when people are like, "Oh, here's you can't tell me here's what we learned." There's so much to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much to unpack. By the way, should I tweet this out? The
Yeah,
top
sure. You
watch
can do
along.
that. You can do that while we're talking. Yeah. But no, look, I
Um,
agree with you. I think, yeah, the link I sent you is totally fine. That's the same for
I'll
everybody.
put
So
it
you
in
can
the
just send
reply
that
now
one.
because Elon doesn't Elon get
Yeah,
gutter the
that's
links
true.
and
Yeah, I got to remember to do that myself. Yeah.
good old
No, but look,
Elon.
I agree with you about this point on learning something. What you can't learn is like how good are we going to be, right?
Hmm.
You can't learn that. You don't know how good we're going to be after a few training sessions, after one day. After some players have only been there for a few days and a couple training sessions, and we'll get into this, the team selection that was mostly forced by fitness and international break travel, things like that. You can't learn how good we're going to be that quickly. But what you did see, and you totally can learn on, which I think is great, is you can already see what Emram wants in terms of a style. And if you've watched Sporting, which I don't think a lot of people have, which is part of why I think many say that you can't learn anything from it. But if you've watched sport in the last few years, and we did a video before he started going through a lot of the patterns and things like that they did, um, you will learn a lot because it's exactly what he did at Sporting for the last few years. You could see it already in the first game, a lot of the same concepts, a lot of the same ideas. So if you know how he coached at Sporting, you could see so much of that already. This is what he wants, this is what he's doing. Everything down to the first goal came from some of the exact patterns that we see at Sporting all the time, and that we even broke down in a video recently, and is in your thread. So yeah, I think there's a lot to learn, and I think you and I have both come to a lot of the same kind of conclusions on the kind of what defined this first game, um, which we'll get into in your thread. But I think almost the be all end all of it was United. The buildup. The buildup was totally different. The shape in the buildup was totally different, and we were
Yeah.
not good at it yet with the people that we had. And really, and I mean by that as well, of course, that includes using the buildup to get past the press. We couldn't do it most of the game. We
Not
couldn't do it,
really.
and that was pretty much it. That was pretty much the whole game, was us trying to
Yeah,
get out of that
that
buildup
was it.
and failing to do so successfully, and then reverting in a lot of instances to like a long ball or a long pass or something to try to beat it, losing it, defending, and then trying again. And we spent, I mean, you had 80, 90 passes from the center backs, 100 for Mazraoui, them just try, and 13 touches at the front for Rashford, them just trying to get out the back. Is that essentially how you saw it? And in the second half, it improved, but that was what I felt was like
Hmm.
the story of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can put whatever sequence happened into three
Yep.
sections of the game. Um, whether that was number one, United build up, don't get past the press, and then that results in them either going long or they do break the press, and the amount of times I saw this, they were on the verge of breaking the press, and everybody was in the right position. A loose touch happened. It hit Xerxes' foot. It hit. I think the part where I got really irate in this game was on the 61st minute. where I was like, okay, in the second half, this was very smart, by the way. In the second half, he saw that Amari Hutchinson kept dropping in and Evans couldn't deal with him. Casemiro was far too slow to get him, and they kept getting space. So he said, all right, look, I don't like that. I'm going to change it very early. In like the 55th minute, he dropped Fernandez back. Ugarte was an Ugarte Fernandez midfield. For 40 minutes in the second half, we had that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine. And then they got control of the game. They absolutely had control of the game in the second half.
And Shaw as well came at the same time, which was a little more energetic,
Not that they created much, but I was like, look, that's fine. That's not what the point of what the sub was. The point was for the next 40 minutes, I'm tired of Hutchinson's transitions. Get some control back. Eventually, you'll fashion a chance, and hopefully, you'll win a game. It kind of reminded me of like Ten Hag's first season 2-1 Fulham, where I think he was trying to control the transitions, and then eventually Garnacho scored last minute. That's kind of what you hope for. In the 61st minute, they broke the press. Literally, Rashford and Garnacho are in the same place, and I think one of them does a loose touch, and it goes away. I lost my head.
I know.
I was like, I've waited the entire second half for this. Amorim will probably lost his shit as well. But those are the three facets of where I can key point in what happened in the game. Either United try and break the press and they don't, because Ipswich, by the way, out of possession, very smartly set up.
Yes.
Really well set up. There's no easy games now in the Premier League at all. That's why the league's very fun this year, but anybody can beat anybody in this season. But they were really well set up. They managed to nullify the back three and the fullbacks and the central midfielders when they were trying to build up. And then whenever United did break the press, decision making or a loose touch here and there would result in the ball being turned over, or Amari Hutchinson kept dropping deep. Evans couldn't control him, and neither could Casemiro. But look, for like, I think most of the game was based whether or not United could break Ipswich's press. Sometimes it was successful, sometimes it wasn't. It was successful in like the first second minute, in the first 90 seconds, and we were like, "Whoa, we've got it! This is easy. This is great." But that comes because Fernandez had dragged out. Fernandez and Diallo.
Let's show it because you've got this one. You've got this one. You've got this one listed out pretty well. And again, this is literally, and I do mean literally. Let me figure out what the best. There we go. This will work. This is literally the. Oh, hang on. Let me do. No, that's not it. Let me find the right one. Hold on.
You can go
this is good. This is a good view. Yeah. This is a good view. But this is literally the exact pattern that we've broken down in your video, in that tactics video we did before Amorim joined, right? Which was, so first we talked about this. Most of the game is based around whether or not United could break Ipswich's press. Sometimes it was successful. They were trying, and he said that too, right? They tried. He could tell that they were trying, but the execution wasn't there. And we'll kind of, I'll use the tactics board later to show the press, because it's really quite easy to see what happened when you look at it. But here, for the goal,
here we go.
They get so go ahead. Yeah.
So they've done the right thing here. And Ipswich kept pressing United's back three very high.
Yep.
Evans, Delict was on the edge of the penalty area. He wasn't that deep. That's one thing. We'll get onto this, but that's one thing that you can change later on. Inter Milan do it really well. You see a centre back like way up the pitch. I think that's one thing that I would like to see them try.
Yep.
And then it goes over to Mazraoui's side. Now, when you watch this, Ipswich are all already they're spruced over to one side, but he's attracted Ipswich's fullback, Diallo, on that side. So as Davis runs out to him, Fernandez sees this and runs into the half spaces in behind.
Exact run. Yep. We see like Trincao doing that run a lot at Sporting. Yep. Same move. Yep.
If we score goals this season with Amorim, 80% of the goals will be like this.
Yes.
80% of the goals will be like this.
Yep.
So the reason this works out well is because when Fernandez receives it, Burgess, who's the Ipswich centre-back, has to go across and press Fernandez. If you go to the next one, you'll see this.
Okay.
If you go to the next image, there you can see the space opens up. Diallo does really well here, by the way. in terms of when he receives it, he still has to
Yep.
take 2 players on,
Right.
but it's the half spaces in here that are going to be
And
the
this
key
is
for
one of the
United.
reasons he likes the inverted foot fullback on this side too, right? Because Ahmad comes inside of Fernandez here
Yeah,
to give him the pass and to make the run beyond him, right?
absolutely. Yeah, it's always
Yep.
going to be almost 80% of the time. It's going to be, can we attack those half spaces? Can we attract the player out wide? Whether it's Fernandez who goes wide first, or whether it's Diallo who goes wide first, whoever goes wide, the other player on that same wing will dart into the half spaces. He then goes down the wing, crosses for Rashford, and then here presto, there's your goal. Now
Right.
they didn't really do this enough at all. I felt
Yeah.
progression was like really really tough. It's mainly because they surrounded Ericsson and Casemiro. So from what you can see there, when the front three goes to press United's back three, there was always a player in front of one of the advanced 10 attackers.
Yeah.
So Fernandez is in the right space there. It's just Smodics is sort of covering the passing lane. So there isn't
Mhm.
really too much you can do. The only thing that they did in response to this, and I think they did this correctly, is whenever they got the ball wide. So if you go to like the next few, if you go to the one after this,
So this is just they've got
yeah.
Hutchinson on
So again,
Evans, Delap on Delict,
this is on the
Smodic over
opposite
here,
side.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, but this I want to display. Garnacho's doing the right thing here. He's
Yeah.
in the half spaces, but this time it's Tuan Zibi going across into from
Mhm.
fullback. So if it's not one of the Ipswich's forwards in the three who's sort of marking the passing lane, one of Ipswich's defenders will come out and mark Garnacho or Fernandez. So I think that was a real problem.
Yep.
Um, the few times that they did bypass it, they had to go really really wide.
Yes.
So again, this is the same. Burgess has to come out now from centre back,
And
and
on that point, I think that's where we see United are maybe unfamiliar with doing that, going wide, because Amorim uses those high fullbacks to stay extremely wide, which you commented on Dallo, right? Like, don't pass it and run off to the middle, but stay in your spot. That's like his new instruction he's trying to give him: stay wide, stay in your lane, stay in that channel, because the width is kind of the only way to beat this. You have to be
I would
able to
say so.
play
Yeah,
really wide when a team is blocking off the central progressions like that. And just on that point, one of the things that I found to be but you may have it in here. If you do, let me know. But one of the things that I found from watching, knowing how they usually play in comparison to what we did, is with the 5 players and the 2 wide, it often just took too long to move it across to get to
Mm,
a wide player when they had some space. Like, it was just, and this is just execution. They were just slow, like the extra touch, the extra thought that
yeah.
goes into it
I
instead
think I
of
think you're right.
the immediate action. And then as well, like those kind of chipped balls, from, we saw it even in the training session, from left center back to right wing back, from right center back to left wing back. Hitting those passes, where rather than it taking 2 passes to get to the wing back, or 3 passes, it takes 1. And that way you can, because the defense can't move as fast as the ball, right? I mean, that's the basic principle of football. At the end of the day, is like, the ball can move faster than the players. So if you want to get it from one side to the other, if you go slow, you're not going to be faster than the players to adjust from side to side.
I think that too, but also what he meant by saying my players were overthinking is I think they were so obsessed with doing what Amrim wanted them to
Yeah,
do,
sure.
they didn't actually sort of spontaneously think of decisions that could
Right.
get them out of that spot themselves. So I think he mentioned this at the end in the interview with Sky Sports. He said Josh needs to know when we have the ball wide, you can get into the box. Now
Yeah.
Xerxes got good height, but he was probably so obsessed with sort of doing what Amrin wanted him to do, he didn't
Being a 10,
spontaneously
right?
think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but he didn't spontaneously think, okay, they've got the ball wide, I can maybe actually go into the box.
Yes.
I
Yep.
think it was a mixture of They were trying to do what Amorim wanted them to do, and they did. But then they were also not finding solutions to what McKenna's press was. And
Yes.
McKenna's press was very good. I have to say,
Yeah.
I think other teams, I think Everton maybe aren't this disciplined out of possession.
Yeah.
I think Dyche will play a 4-5-1 mid block. The times that they did get through here, so this is when the ball goes wide to Dallo. So you can see Casemiro is marked here, and Ericsson is kind of marked by Burns, but Burns is gonna come wide to Dallo.
Yep.
What they did the few times when it worked is they went wide to Dallo, and Garnacho would make his run out to in. So he would drag
Yes.
Tuanzebe in and then go all the way out, which is again, it's successful the way they've done it. If you go to the next one, it'll show it.
Yeah, so Garnacho drops deep.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which means Tuanzebe follows him, so Dallo is open here.
Out to in. You can see Tuanzebe's had to come back and then come back in, and now he's scampering away.
And then Garnacho just has to, which is not easy for what it's worth. Tuanzebe is also extremely fast. I mean, we saw him against Mbappe when he played for us, but that was the idea here.
After the game, I was like, I'm not sure about Garnacho. I went back and watched. I was like, there's a few occasions I was like, okay, Garnacho in that weird attacking 10 role, maybe he could do a job.
Yeah. Now I really liked this from here, okay? This switch, because after this moment when he gets free, this happened a lot. And this is what I was talking about them not making this long pass often, is Ahmad wasn't as involved in certain instances as I think he could have been, even at wingback. But you can see out here, he's open, because their press was really good, but obviously a big part of that is they overload the side where the ball is. Of course, that's any good press is gonna shift to adjust to the ball side, and in many instances they're leaving the wingback open on the other side, but we were not able to take advantage of that to get it over to them. In this instance, Garnacho does, and Ahmad is completely open. After that move where he drags Tuanzebe, that means that the center backs have to stay on that side because Tuanzebe's come up the pitch. And then that means they have to shift. So then Rashford in the central area is occupying the fullback here, actually. Ahmad's fullback is occupied with him here.
It's all about finding that gap in the half space. In this case, Ipswich have pressed high. It's about bypassing that press and then switching the ball. You've gotten the ball smoothly from A to B. It's just whenever they did that, it wasn't it was on a fair few occasions or whenever they did that. I think the next action for this is Diallo chips it to Fernandez and it doesn't really go anywhere. But again, I have to say, if you want to go to the next one, I have to say
this was the same move. They did it again, like a second time. Garnacho in,
absolutely
out, and this is where he gets the ball through. And actually does get in behind, though it doesn't result in anything. Yeah, but it was a good move. It was a good move. This is in theory, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 against 4, and that's good. That's good numbers. That's kind of what you want out of the situation, in theory, right?
This is what should have been happening quite often. We're just displaying the few times that it did. Now, it didn't happen often because this is what we saw mainly. Because they stuck tight to the players in the half spaces, they followed Fernandez and Garnacho when they were dropping. They were pushed back, and it's kind of why we saw them go long often. Sometimes Anna would get it and go long. Sometimes Dallo would get it and go long. I'm like okay,
here,
it's not. You can see, look, they're pushed back. It's not. Ipswich are very good at this. They push Tottenham back like this as well.
Yeah,
and obviously Tottenham are different because they have less players in build-up and etc. But it's not. It was a smart press, and what these players are going to have to do for the remainder of the season is take Amorim's advice on board, but also learn how to deal with the fact that it's a tougher league now. It's different teams who I don't think Sporting Lisbon would have ever faced teams like this out of possession. Not to say Ipswich are the best team in the world, but
they're very well drilled. Yeah, I mean they're extremely well drilled.
It's going to be a very well drilled setup each week, and they're going to have to come up with solutions to this rather than having it free to bypass the press each time. You want more of what we saw before to happen rather than what we're seeing now, which is like basically getting pushed back in the press. It's how, because it's gonna be how United score most of their goals under Amorim. But I
Yep.
think I think a little bit cause for concern was the Hutchinson thing as well. If we can go to that, and by the way, all of this has an asterisk on it because we don't have our best press resistant players. We
Right.
don't have Kobe
Exactly.
Manu.
Yep.
There's no
Like the
Martin
midfield was probably the worst possible
options.
option
Yeah,
from a physical profile for a game like this with a really good pressing team. I mean, you said it when Ugarte came on and Shaw came on. That alone,
change
56
things.
minutes completely changed it, even against a very good team. And so sometimes it is the personnel, just energy wise. Casemiro was caught out a lot in this game for sure. But he often is when he's partnered with Christian Eriksen because there's just no legs, to cover the spaces and to defend those channels in there.
I think having those two on there, Casemiro especially, kind of highlighted how difficult it will be when they play, or at least in this sense, Hutchinson highlighted how difficult it will be because them two were playing. If you go to, I think one of the ones after that,
Well, I
just
just showed
after,
this. This was a good move again, where we got it to Ahmad in the space. Bruno comes over, right?
yeah. But again,
And
pass
then
is loose when Rashford
yeah,
receives it.
that's right. Yeah, it comes in. It comes in loose. Let's see here. So see which one you're looking for.
If you go back, it's like the one at the bottom.
Down here.
Yeah,
This was the second
just one
half
up.
one.
Yeah, just one up. There you go.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So I thought this was a huge problem actually. So and it might be more of a problem as we go along. Let's see. It's without the ball here. Whenever Casemiro and Ericsson try to manage Mossy and I can't pronounce his name to save my life. I think it's Trujaste. Anyway, it's the
Oh
other
yeah.
central
Yeah.
midfielder. It's basically the other central midfielder. They would either too slow to press Mossy or they would get through the press, Ipswich,
Yep.
basically. So whenever the United's front three were pressing, Casemiro was like slow to mark the other midfielder. Ericsson would mark one midfielder. Casemiro was supposed to mark the other, but because he's slow at sort of jumping straight away, or maybe he's not used to the fact that he needs to be on him straight away, they would receive the ball, turn, and pass it to Hutchinson.
Yes.
Evans was always instructed to come as close into Ipswich's half to mark Hutchinson, but he couldn't really
Yes.
aggressively get a hold of him. I don't even think he fouled him. I don't
No.
even think he fouled
You
him.
couldn't touch him. Like basically, you just couldn't even get touch tight to him to do that. Yeah.
I thought if Martinez was on by now, he would have fouled him twice, and he would have maybe stole the ball off of him at least twice as
Yeah.
well.
And I think Shaw did all right at that as well in the second half, getting more aggressive. I think he did commit a couple of fouls on Hutchinson in the when he came on in
When
the
he
second
needed
half.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
But I felt like just because we had more control in the second half as well, you kind of
Yeah.
alleviate the need to do things like this.
Right.
You alleviate your need to perform defensive actions when you have a lot more of the ball.
Well, and that was the comment he made, right? Which was that United give the ball away too much, and then you can't press high. So like Johnny's got to run a big distance here because I think United in this sequence lose the ball quickly, right? I mean, you can look at how spread out the team is in many ways. The lines are big, the center backs are not parked here like you kind of hope they would be, and you're not sustaining possession so that instead of Johnny having to run from his own half to try to close Hutchinson down, he's already standing there, and that alleviates some of the physical demands of those big distances and gaps and things like that. So like you said, when you have more control, you have less of these issues. And that's, I think, why it all comes back to that buildup. If you can't get through the buildup right, if you can't build up properly, if you can't own that territory and push yourself up the pitch, then you lose it going long. Then the gap is big. Then Johnny Evans is sprinting 30 yards to try to close down Hutchinson. Then he gets turned, and then you give up an attack. And it's like, that's the basketball we saw so many times, in the last year, of like, go up, and then everybody's running up the pitch, and then everybody's running backwards, and we don't have the legs for that.
It's all interlinked. What United want to do more of is what we saw in the second half, and that is like have most of the ball. And what United want to do more of is what we explained earlier, which is bypass the press whenever you can, get runners into the half space, get them on the byline. But we did see a lot of this, unfortunately, and it was mainly, I felt, because Casemiro was too slow to press Morsey, or too slow to press another central midfielder. If you want to go to the one that's just above this, it explains it like perfectly. So okay. And you go to the next image.
Morsey.
That's it again there. Too slow.
Yeah.
So he's meant to, the front three there are meant to be marking, so Garnacho, Rashford, and Fernandes are meant to be marking Ipswich centre backs. Garnacho is doing the right thing there. He kept running out towards Tuanzebe. I think that was an instruction. Morsey is meant to be marked by Casemiro.
Right, to prevent this pass, because it's defend the middle is a big part of the Amorim instructions.
Always,
defend the middle.
But what kept happening, and Ipswich did this on the other side, I think, with Smodics, is Hutchinson kept dropping into the half space.
Yeah.
So again, there you see that
would follow him.
The 2-on-1. But I think a problem was when they would. I think the next image shows it in Ipswich's half, or the one after. If you just go back,
this one here, was it this one again?
No, if you want to go down one more. If you want to go down one more, there's one in Ipswich's half. Hold on, go up.
Let's see, where is that one? This is one where
that's
one of these. Yeah, okay.
That's the one. If you want to go back one, just back one image.
Yep.
There you go. Okay, this is it. This is a perfect explanation of it. So United are in the high press here, and you could see, I think Amad Diallo is pushed up to the Ipswich fullback as well.
Right, he's right here. Yeah. Yep.
This will be an issue again, I think, because of personnel. If Ugarte is in this position, I would like to think that he is a little bit more alert, and he can either, number one, nick the ball off of him,
and maybe Eriksson too, because he's kind of in no man's land here. He's not really doing anything in this press at all. He's kind of just floating around.
They're both lackadaisical. They're both too slow to be close to the Ipswich midfielders. So when they get it, he turns. Casemiro slides. He can't get there.
Yes.
And you can see Hutchinson's in space. Now,
right here. Yeah. And then
this is
wide open. Yeah.
This was a big problem throughout the game, because after they scored, they didn't really have that many chances to score again, United. And then Ipswich, I think, were probably unfortunate to not win. It sounds harsh to say, but
Amorim said too. He said with Onana, we would lose.
Without Onana, I think it'd be a loss, and then you have a disaster on your hands in the first game. So this is a problem, because number one, they're getting adjusted to pressing high. Number two, it's either not going to be Casemiro who's in that position, or maybe he looks jaded because they're undercooked from the international break. Which is another point.
But perhaps if you have him with Ugarte, then Ugarte can be doing this. Casemiro can do a little bit. Can be over here.
He likes to marshal his 20, 30 yards.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit better, and it's like it would suit their positions a little more in those circumstances. Yeah.
I also think it's just getting used to the first. It's the first game of a new manager, so it's.
Can I ask you one more question on this picture, for example? Because I'm thinking, like, ideally, in an ideal world here, not just are these midfielders tight, but your center backs are up here too. in this instance, like really high. I'm not saying they can be, because again, the sequence of play that led to this, often they're not high up, but I mean, ideally, right, you're building territory. When you're losing the ball and pressing in this kind of position, and your wing back is all the way up here, your center backs are not far behind, right? They're also ideally very high, just so there's not this big space. Again, front line, we can't even see the center backs, but that distance between the front and the back should be ideally, again, as we work to it, the smaller we can get that, the better, essentially, because you're making the pitch tiny for the opposition is kind of the goal, I would imagine. I can see how, like, one of the concerns is obviously the simplicity of, like, because of how slow the back line was with Evans on that side, he might be nervous to cross halfway because you can't even get offside. You can't even set an offside trap after halfway, right? And so just they don't want to let a ball go over the top or something, and that might be a personnel concern. But no, it's ideally these are the kind of the growing pains. One other question I want to ask you about this, because there's a few things you've shown in here that are interesting to me, but are also a little bit different. And I wonder if they'll change or if they'll stay the same. Okay. With Sporting, a lot of the time with his press, he wouldn't do this. He would not have his winger go wide like this to press. Unless you're really in the opposition half doing like a really heavy counter press, like trying to win the ball back immediately after losing it. But he would keep them narrow, right? The front three narrow, so that this doesn't happen. So Rashford is here, Bruno is here marking this pass, and he's okay with them having the ball out here, and you're keeping the ball in those like almost fullback areas for the opposition, and you're specifically blocking the middle. This looks very counter to his usual, and I think this is where it's probably a bit of the learning is like, because you pointed out one thing with Garnacho and Tuanzebe, which was correct, where he was following him. But I looked at those areas and it's narrow, right? When Tuanzebe is coming in, Garnacho is tight to him. And you can see that you can easily block this off if Casemiro was doing the right things.
Yeah.
They're not
or
blocking
even if Rashford was 2 yards wide.
Yeah, correct. They're not worrying about this guy, right? Like Bruno's not over here. That's fine. That would be normal for an Amorim team. Usually, like this kind of trap, in this instance here. Hold on, let me find it again. This kind of trap where they trap the fullback only happens when they get into for Sporting, they would let them get into their half and then set that trap, because they're very condensed at that point. They can't pass to the middle. Their only option is to lose it, take a risky pass in, or go backwards. Here, they're not very condensed. And so I'm wondering if that's a change that we'll see, where they're not going to press like this and focus more on defending the center. You talked about this before, this thing about like pressing the keeper, how United's where United would often go too much with the press, right? Just too much. And it's like, why, I would rarely ever see Sporting press the keeper, for example. They usually don't. The striker, even Gyökeres, often drops in to the midfield rather than going forward in the press. He's usually dropping in a little bit. And I remember discussing that and thinking that's different. And I wonder if that's the instruction. Look, the two things I wonder is that can either be they haven't got it yet, right? There's still some old habits. Or does he feel like at United, he can't sit off as much? And that I would be a little worried if he thinks that way, because I think you can. We've seen it like with City and Arsenal sometimes, where they do know the right times to sit off. And they're not always going crazy, from an out of possession standpoint. So I'm curious which one of those will kind of come through.
Yeah, me too. I don't bank on us pressing Arsenal like this.
Yeah.
I think he maybe is taking the risk to press like this because it's Ipswich. And yes, they created lots of chances, but when you have a really good keeper like Onana, maybe you can take that risk. But it's true that I am curious, just like you, to see whether he sticks with this press or whether he compacts the center more. But I
Yep.
think that City sometimes press City before this current crisis. City pressed like this as well, and there
Yeah.
was holes, but they have so much of the ball. It kind of
Correct. Right.
again
It's
doesn't
so many.
matter.
It's yeah. Control with
If you
possession.
if
Right.
if
Yeah.
you have 70%, 80% of the ball and you
You
create
can take these
two
risks. Yeah.
transitions, that's
Yeah.
fine because you have 80% of the ball and
Yep.
you have control of the game and you can dictate tempo. But there were other instances where the press looked okay, looked all right, like with everybody pushed up. But I think it was instruction. I think it was an instruction to push up, and I do think it backfired. It
Yeah.
backfired
I would agree, especially with the
because
personnel. Like,
look, we've seen this United team press high and it has backfired unless Mason Mount has been in there. It's
yeah.
backfired multiple times unless you have Mount in there.
Yep.
The next thing that I want to talk about, and I think it's very important to do so, is whilst it's becoming clearer that certain players will not work in this first game, there's other players I'm looking at that I'm thinking now you are going to be so important because
Right.
there's less opportunities to be an attacker in this team because you're only going to be in the three. There's
Yep.
less opportunities to be a midfielder in this team because you're only going to be a two. If you're a wide winger who can play as a fullback or in the front three, you're golden. You probably have a lot of
Yes.
games.
Yes.
I'm looking at sort of Mason Mount, Amad Diallo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to change my stance and say even Garnacho after a rewatch, Kobe Mainu, Martinez, and I'm going. They could be huge because Mount is a better presser than Casemiro.
Yep.
Mainu
I think
is
Mount, you think, can play deep and in the front
yes,
three. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Why
think
not?
so as well. Yeah.
I'd say use the depth that you have, but why not play Mount in the two and
Yeah.
then in some games go okay Diallo and Garnacho and Rashford or Hoyland, Rashford, Diallo, whichever
Yeah.
one you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think Mount is going to be huge in the two, and I would
Yes.
like to think that if you are going to stick with this high press, Mount is going to lead that and be brilliant. So you could do Mount, Mainu, Diallo, Garnacho, Rashford.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the changes in the second half were smart, and it's very important that he is doing these things early. It was what, 54th minute? Is that right?
Yeah. Which he does a lot. Yeah. 50,
He
55, I
does
think.
he does it a
Yeah.
lot, by the way. He does his
Yeah.
changes a lot, and
Yeah.
it's good
Sometimes even
because
half time. Yeah. Yeah.
any manager should be proactive these days because it's not really about what is happening in terms of a clash of styles. It's what's happening in game and what can I do to change it quickly. So as soon as
Yep.
I saw that, I liked it. I felt like we wrestled control back, but then I was kind of disappointed by Hoyland and Xerxes. I don't know. It felt like they had been on a night out together,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. It didn't feel like they were at it. It felt like when they got into the right positions, they didn't dribble with much purpose or they had some goofy actions. I think
Yeah.
they just looked a little bit tired. I want to put it down to tiredness and undercookedness from the international break because they didn't. Xerxes also looks underconfident as well.
Yeah. Well, like you said, and part of what makes it tough and where you say, I think we could see a lot and learn a lot, like you said at the beginning, what makes it tough to say how good we are is I think overall, it was just really poorly executed by a lot of players in that game, whether
Yeah,
it's confusion, overthinking, not understanding, tiredness, the break, fitness, what have you. It was a lot of under execution, and a lot of times it's harder to make an assessment when so many players are like not executing and so many touches are loose because you think, well, that moment could have been brilliant if that guy didn't take that loose touch and instead was able to immediately get it to that guy or to make that pass or to complete that run or something like that. And it makes quite a big difference there. But no, it's encouraging in that respect, like you said, and the changes were good. And I agree with you about certain players being like indispensable because there's so many ways you can utilize them in this. It
yeah,
starts to look really good. And I think the biggest thing is you're going to have to be very energetic. I mean, you're going to have to be very energetic. in this, and and I think it gives a lot of flexibility there.
I'd also like to see this team in a couple months when they're put into situations like this, but can think on their feet and get out of it
Yeah.
themselves. So a
Yes.
few
Of
times, I don't know
course.
why everyone hates Dallo, by the way, now. God, everyone hates Dallo. There was a few
I,
occasions where Mazraoui and Dallo got it. They were
yeah.
pressed, but they're good enough to be like, well, I don't care if you're pressing me. I'm going to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
out of it. I'll
Yep.
take you on and then go forward with it. You need more players like that.
And
Whoever is really, really press resistant is going to be good in this team.
I think what happened with Dowdlow in that game, my thoughts on it is like, because he had a couple of really good instances. He had a couple of the balls to Garnacho were fantastic, with that play. He had a couple instances where he got it and he turned and drove up the field. And that's one thing I think I want to see United players do more as well, is in some instances where they're passing, they could be carrying the ball and breaking the press, by moving through the lines themselves, when they have space and time. And Dallo did, I think, that really well. So did Mazraoui, where they get the ball, beat a defender, go past them, drag someone else, and then the pass is even more open. Dallo did that a lot. I think what happened is that there was a few instances, like more than a few, maybe 3 or 4 instances where Dallo did something and there was just like nobody near where he was passing the ball. And it looked like just awful. Like there's a couple instances he just like sent it through to absolutely nobody. But that's really just learning the team together. It's really not an individual issue when that happens. There was a few instances like that in other parts of the team as well. That's a learning thing. It's just like in this new place where you're in different positions than you're used to, players are not going to be where you're used to them being. And you got to learn, because you want to not have to think about it. You want to, by second nature, know where somebody is and miss that. The only other thing I think where it probably could help is staying wide and not coming narrow in defense as well. Like staying out on that guy on the side and not coming in and giving him too much space when the ball is going to that side.
Yeah.
But it's
I
a different
think
position too. I mean, it just is. It's like you're going to learn those things.
I think it's a team that is learning to get used to a manager whose entire game model is very principle based. It's not that flexible.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
I would say that along as the season goes on, we're going to encounter more problems like this. I want to see more solutions to this. So,
Yep.
to do something really, really good, which is they will push one of their left centre backs or right centre backs way up the pitch. I'm
Yep.
talking way up the pitch. Like they will push De Ligt or Mazraoui next to where Fernandez is, because then that pulls a player with him.
Yep.
This is something that you could do.
Yep. So I just want to cover one more thing on the buildup with this board, because it was something that was kind of like clear to me, at least, right? So in essence, where United got stuck is basically this. Here, let me just move myself so I can drag this out of the way. Remember the 100% the exact way that this was set up for Ipswich, but it's kind of something like
No,
this.
I think you have the rough.
The rough concept here, I think, is about right,
Yeah.
where they were sitting, and obviously what I would see a lot, and then Hutchinson would be kind of oftentimes moving into here, but what I would see a lot of, obviously we saw a lot of passes back and forth in here, right? A lot of moving the ball between these three, and one of the things that I would hope, and where I saw, and there's kind of 2 passes, right, that happen, that you mentioned. One of them that is used in the buildup a lot, right, is trying to make this pass into the 10, dropping in, or the forward, what have you, into them, kind of dropping into this hole. And now they were pretty good at sitting this front 3 in front so that you couldn't really do that. Where I think that we were oftentimes, like, one of the good instances where the goal came was it came out to here, right?
Yeah.
Bruno had kind of moved here.
Drag wider, yeah.
Yep, Davis came here, so Fernandez comes out here, and I think that
Burgess has to go across
Burgess
there,
tries to get him. Ahmad is
Diallo
able to
goes into
run
that.
by, and
Yeah.
that's your goal, right? And there was a couple instances we did that on the other side as well, where Garnacho came in. You showed that one. The ball goes out to Diallo, to Dallo rather, and then Garnacho makes this. Hold on, sorry. Garnacho makes this run. The ball goes down the line, and that was pretty good too, right? Because then
Yeah.
Morsi has to, or Tuanzebe comes over
Tuanzebe
here
comes
to
in, yeah.
him. Morsi tries to go over here, and Garnacho can beat him, because he's ahead of it and knows where he's going. So that was good. More of that, better. Like the more we can perfect that move over and over, the better, right? The more we can find those spaces. The other pass that I think we really, really missed, and I think this is purely down to confidence, this is my opinion, is we would move the ball to the side here. This fullback would step up to close down. Let's say the ball, let me get the ball on the screen. The ball is like over here, right?
Yeah.
Dallo would kind of drop in. Tuanzebe would go here. Morsi would be sticking to around where Garnacho is.
Yeah. I think
And the
also
defense would shift this
I
way,
think
right?
also Burns was and Smodics were really good at sort of staying in the middle between Dallo and
Yes.
Ericsson. So
Yeah,
whenever
like this. They're here rather, yeah.
whoever it went to, be it Dallo or Ericsson, if it went to Dallo wide, Burns would press wide, which meant that Tuanzebe could come and mark Garnacho.
Let me swap these.
So sort of
Yep.
so where Burns was, where Morsi was, he would be on Ericsson, which would make it harder. So Burns is like kind of marking two players, but kind of going to wherever the ball was.
Yeah, he's kind of in between for whichever pass they want to make here. Now, this is where I think we could do better, because there's an image you had that showed this as well, that I know this is a tough pass. I know it's a tough pass. But when it would go to this side, this was often available. And the same for the other side. When we would do this and they would shift over, their other side fullback would come in narrow, and you'd have Rashford kind of sitting in between them, right? And he can't leave because otherwise it's open right here. I'll try to find the image again, but it was exactly, and then I'll put it on the screen.
I think that's how the first goal happens, honestly.
Correct. Yeah, it is, because it wasn't as huge of spaces, but it was exactly this where Ahmad
they
had
switched it all
space.
the way to Diallo, yeah.
Yeah, and it was quick, and it moved really quick to him. Well, I think this was available more often
than not.
But
it's a risk.
It's a riskier
problem is
pass.
It's a risky pass, and it's Johnny Evans playing it.
Correct. And he was concerned. Yes.
If that's Martinez playing it, there's one instant that I saw where they're in the positions they're in now.
Yep.
But I think Garnacho peels off wide next to Tuanzebe, where Tuanzebe is, and Tuanzebe is like all the way back into Ipswich's back four. So if you want to pull Garnacho a little bit wider, that pass from where De Ligt is to Garnacho, and by the way, Tuanzebe wasn't close to him. Tuanzebe was like much.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. This was available too, from the middle to the side.
Just that chipped ball over the press, that was available too. But again, we talk about it's the same things: system, the players getting used to it, and as time goes by, hopefully they realize that these solutions are in place and certain passes are available that they could make, and they'll make these as they go along and as they get more matches under the belt, which is why I'm looking forward to Bodo Glimt and Everton, because hopefully those are two confidence games that they can get used to these systems with. Arsenal, I think it'll be completely different. I think it'll be Sporting Lisbon Champions League City.
Right.
That's what we'll see, honestly.
Probably. And that pointed out by somebody here as well, which is totally correct, is the other thing we didn't really see that absolutely can happen when they figure it out more is in an instance like this, Ericsson moving, to open up space in the middle. And the same on the other side, Ericsson moving out wide instead of sitting in the middle so that Garnacho can run in, in this case, or even Rashford can run in. And either way, it's going to move the defense to create some gaps, but there was not enough of that happening. But that's, like you say, like Ching being a little too specific, the players to sticking to exactly this plan and not like being, adding, like you get one instruction. All right, I'm going to do this. Then I got to add in, but I could also do this. Then I got to add in, but I could also do this.
Yeah.
And that will take time to develop that extra thought, like the extra problem solving, the extra potential choice that you have to make. The more choices, the more confusing, right? And that might just be down to training. Don't give in the first game, just do this. In the next games, I want you to make a choice. Which one of these things should you be doing, and add it piece by piece rather than all at once?
The more you get used to a system, the more you adjust to how comfortable you are in the system, the more
Yep.
you start to thrive yourself in the system. There'll be certain things that Amorim can't control these players like with a PlayStation joystick. They will just
Yes.
have to figure things out themselves as they go
Yep.
along. It's just that we saw an idea. We saw a clash to the idea. We saw how United came up a little bit short when the idea is kind of meeting an immovable object. But
Yep.
I have to say it again, Ipswich are a good team without the ball.
They are.
They're
They're actually
honestly,
probably one of the better pressing teams in
I
the
think
league.
so,
I
yeah.
mean, in terms of organization
It's
and
how they
all
beat
that.
Tottenham. It's how
Yeah.
they kept pushing their press back. And then they
Yep.
did this. Tottenham did the same thing where they just kept going long and then it was kind of aimless. Also,
Yep.
if United want to develop going along as more of a solution as sort of the season progresses, probably Højlund is better than Rashford at that.
For sure. Yeah.
He's more of a busy player. He moans too much about the amount of fouls for centre backs, but he's better at trapping it than Rashford is.
And Amorim said, look, Rashford, that's not his best position. He said in his press conference today, he's up against two big things here. That's not his best position. His best position is probably where Garnacho was playing in that game for sure. And I
Yeah.
think, you could play both of them, either one of them in that spot, and whoever's doing better, play them in that position. Whoever's in better form, whoever's getting it more, play them in that position. And it'd be better to play Højlund up top, I think, for sure. I mean, I think, Bruno, Garnacho, Højlund, Bruno, Rashford, Højlund, Mount, Rashford, Højlund, Mount, Garnacho, Højlund. Those are all really good combinations that you could make that could help. That would probably do a little bit better. Yeah. But no, look, I agreed. And so there's progress to be made. There's more to come. And I think for sure we'll learn a little bit more about it once we have a few more personnel come back. Lissandro is available tomorrow. Luke Shaw should be available to start. So I think our back line against Bodo Glimt should be less slow. No offense to Johnny Evans, but after 2 years of coming back to just stay fit, playing that position in a back three is probably like not what he was expecting, and the worse for him. I mean, statistically on this note, by the way, looking at Sporting center backs, their left center back averages 9 long passes attempted per game. They're mostly this big switch, right? To the winger, to the fullback. Evans attempted 0. And that's just the confidence factor of like, do I know what I'm doing in this instance? And do I want to take that risk right now, given all the things I'm trying to deal with at once? And I think that, if that's Lissandro, he's pinging that ball out to Diallo very often, and we're getting breaking the press a lot
more joy,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot more. So that'll
I agree with that.
improve. That'll improve because Mazraoui did it. He was one of the few players that individually would problem solve and break the press and help us get up the pitch. He did it more than anybody, I think, that in the team. And he's such an intelligent player. I mean, I have to say, what a player Mazraoui's turned out to be for us.
What a signing as well. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. But it's more, it's getting used to the system and then also finding solutions to the system when problems arise. So I think we'll see it more and more. But honestly, it was kind of really important. It sounds bad to say this. It was kind of important to get the draw and not the loss. Like we don't have we have the whole. It's his first game. The draw's all right. If it was his first game and it was a loss, people would go, "Well, this is a disaster," and it's United. So I thought that was important, but also I think it was doubly important getting the control back in the second half. That's what you want to see more of.
That we improved was good, right? Like that we actually were able to improve in game and get better. I think was really, really nice.
That's what you want to see more of, because the majority of the best ball dominant teams in the world play 90 minutes like that. Might be boring, might be jarring for the neutral to watch, but that's how predominantly the best teams play. They dominate the game from minute 1 to 90, and because it's we've got the ball for 90 minutes, we're going to knacker you out, and we're going to wait for the positions in the space to appear. So that's what you want to see more of. I want to see more of the second half with some sprinkles of the finding space in the first.
Yeah. And he did say, Amorim today in his press as well, right? This talk about like a striker, and he says, I don't need a striker. Basically, we need to play better as a team to score more goals. We need to improve as a team. It's not symptomatic. Throw a striker in that game, and suddenly it papers the cracks, and we're scoring goals. It's be better as a team, control the game.
And that will dominate, lead us to have more chances.
Exactly. So I think he's got the right idea. I think he's approaching it the right way, and I'm sure he's smart. We saw it with the in-game adjustments. I'm sure he is looking at the right problems. He identified pretty much all of them in the pressers and everything afterwards. So, yeah.
Let's see. I mean, I think there's 2 nice games coming up for United to. You need to get in, get out, win well, find some space, and then Arsenal. I think it's going to be an adjustment of tactics.
Yep.
It's going to be more counter. It's going to be Ole ball, I think.
Yeah, it could be, but if you can do that too, that's fine. That's okay.
Because this team isn't ready to control games from minute 1 to 90 against an Arsenal. It's not. Yeah. The rest of the season now is about refining the style, getting used to the style, getting as good as you can to this style. The league is not. The league it's the best time to come into this league because everybody's going to drop points. Everyone is going to look embarrassing. People are going, I said it the other day, we're only 6 points away from Arsenal. We're not going to get there. But it's still, it's better than 9, 10, 11 points.
Yeah, it's close. It's all tighter than it's been. And so we'll always be in the mix. And certainly, even top 5 is not off the table in the slightest. But it's a good time. I think it's the best time for this, to commit as well, like Amorim said, to suffering a little bit right now, not going cheap but going for refining a style and really getting it in place. It's the best time to do it. If we can afford to do it right now, and even within a couple of months, be doing so much better. I don't think top 4 Champions League is going to be off the table a few months from now at all. I think we'll be close to it. Even kind of struggling along to implement our style, I think we'll be close to it, and maybe have a good chance in the second half of the season to make a push for it while playing the way we want to play.
There's also there's a lot more interesting things to digest from my perspective now, rather than it's the same old shit. Hopefully we win. It's the quotes. Amorim speaks really well in the media. Obviously, sometimes that doesn't matter when things go to shit because nobody cares about anything when things are going to shit. But one thing that he said, which was really good, was, I guarantee if we just scrap everything just to win now, just to get results now, we'll be in the same place we were in a year. There's a certain Dutch manager who literally, and this is the reason why we had so many wins by 1 goal, which was, he was obsessed with, this is United, I need to win. And he's right, because there's an obsession with winning at United, and when you don't win, things collapse, and every single pundit in the country wants to talk about how bad they are when they don't win. But I think Amorim recognizes both, but he recognizes that he's going to have to refine that perfect style in order to continue winning in that sense.
And it's better to do it now than you can't do it in your 3rd year. You can't say now we're going to suffer in our 3rd year, because by then you're supposed to be winning. You can suffer in the beginning. And I think that's what, unfortunately, we didn't do in the past. And that's the correction Amorim wants to make. Don't go 2 games and abandon everything to win
just because of the pressure of winning.
Just suffer, and hopefully you'll win games, and I think we will anyway, and pick up points. But just deal with it, because it doesn't actually take that long to do it, to get better. You are going to improve every single week, even if it's minuscule. Like Jurgen Klopp, right? 6 draws in his first 10 games, I think it was, for Liverpool when he joined in October. They kept getting better after that. They did suffer for the first couple of months, and it wasn't perfect after that, but there was an upward trajectory.
Couple of years, They conceded so many goals.
They did. Yes,
it's It's very organized
It was
chaos.
always
But
very funny back then to watch them, but
yeah, because you were like, you're still
it was
crap.
chaotic.
You're gonna keep being crap, and now the whole.
And then
Okay,
suddenly
they're
it was like,
fantastic now.
yeah.
Yeah, you're not
Then
funny
they got
anymore.
Van Dyke and it flipped and the switch flipped and you're like, oh shit, they're actually
Yeah.
very good.
So we're at the. I think a lot of people, me included, are realizing it's a process. It's a process. It's a process. This is stage one. We're not going to be there till stage 3, 4, 5. The hope is they've just got this appointment right.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Well, let's see. We've got 2 good games. We'll be back next week, Wednesday or Thursday, because I think next week's games, we might have 3 games before.
Yeah, we can maybe do 2
because the Wednesday's a
next week,
cup game, so maybe Tuesday. We'll be back Tuesday or Thursday. We'll do Tuesday or Thursday depending on timing. And
it's Arsenal next week. We've got Arsenal.
Yeah, but we have a cup game, right? I mean,
no, it's Everton on Sunday, Arsenal on Wednesday.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah. So we have a Europa on Thursday. We've got Everton on Sunday. We've got Arsenal on Wednesday. So yeah, Tuesday or Thursday, I guess we'll be back. Maybe both. We'll see. We'll decide once we get closer.
I think we should probably do both, to be honest, because we
might as well.
We can have the yippee on Tuesday, and then Thursday when we lose to Arsenal would be interesting.
Or we pull it off, and then we're
win all 3
completely over the moon. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, we'll do it then. So thanks again, Dharnish, for coming on. Thank you all for watching.
Thanks for having me.
For you on YouTube, thank you. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow Dharnish. I'll tweet him and all that when I post the video. And again, it's recorded live on Big Up on our watch along. So make sure you, if you want to participate in it and hang out while we're doing this, and also for watch alongs and things for the season, come join there. Okay. Thank you all. We'll see you in the next one.